What's up, comic geeks, and welcome back to the Script Heroes YouTube channel. Today we have an interview with the now Eisner Award-winning writer, Dan Watters. Dan has worked on Nightwing. He's the current runner on that. He's worked on Batman Dark Patterns, Lucifer, The Six Fingers, Homesick Pilots, and coming up, he's going to be the writer for the new Shredder series. Get your answers about all of those series and more in this interview. And be sure to stick around until the end of the video because we are running a giveaway for the first volume of Dan's run on Nightwing. Jay, give us some details on that.
Yeah, so we're going to be giving away the trade paperback of On With the Show. That's the first arc of Dan Watters' run. And you can stay tuned for the full details on how to enter at the end of the episode.
Absolutely, but let's jump right in to this interview. All right, welcome to the show, Dan Watters, the current writer of Nightwing and Batman Dark Patterns, iconic author of the Lucifer series, a big fan on our podcast here of The Six Fingers, also of Homesick Pilots, and upcoming, Dan is going to be the writer of the new Shredder series for the TMNT universe. Dan, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thanks very much for having me.
Yeah, so if we want to get right into it here, we always start with the same question, which is, how did you get your start in comics? How did you, start writing for books?
Yeah, I mean, I think like most people who end up in this job through a sort of circuitous and sort of Byzantine pathway. I started. I always knew I wanted to write. I thought I wanted to write films. And I started doing sort of film studies at university and realized it was more geared towards journalism, at least at the time. It was still kind of a newish subject. But then, the more I got into, I was very, very interested in the process of film and all that kind of stuff, but it just sort of realizing that it's a very slow grind process. You can be working on one thing for a couple of years, whatever. And then as a writer, you could still end up with this finished product being nothing like what you imagined.
Absolutely.
I was slightly less interested in directing, or at least, it seems like it seems so pie in the sky that I was reading a lot of comics at the time, and I was like, oh, well, maybe I'll have a look at how to do that. It looks like a really fun job. And then through that, I ended up meeting. I got really into like the sort of format and stuff, and then I met Casper Wingard. And we really hit it off, and he's an incredible artist, and sort of lucky enough that he sort of saw something in me, which I think was just ambition and the sort of pig-headedness to keep trying to do it. And we pitched our first book, Limbo, to Image, and we were lucky enough they picked that up, and everything sort of snowballed from there. But the world's slowest snowball, because that was I think we pitched that a decade ago at this point.
Well, it's certainly picked up speed recently. You took over Nightwing following a long and acclaimed run by Tom Taylor and Bruno Redondo. Did that come with any extra pressure to deliver on your part, knowing it had such an iconic style and reception?
I think there's a little bit, yeah. There's a little bit more than general. I don't generally tend to worry about pressure, and especially with these sort of legacy characters, where I feel like it would be very easy to be sort of crushed by that.
Oh yeah.
But you really have to sort of put that aside and approach it as a writer rather than a fan. But I definitely did feel more responsibility in taking over Nightwing because it had brought in so many new fans, and also that it's the first time I've taken over a book with definitely one that's run for that long, because it was issue 119 was it was Dexter Sawyer, my first issue. And so you're sort of aware that there's 118 issues that people are invested in. So normally I'm sort of one to throw the baby out with the bathwater and try and do something a bit unusual, or a bit like a fresh start kind of thing, and strip something back. And that's usually my sort of take of things. This time, I uh, I wanted to make sure that we were picking up all the threads that had been
Mhm.
tricked, or not tricked, but had been sort of laid down, and make sure we kept threading those needles and making it feel like it was some continuation of the same book.
Yeah, we noticed there was, you have a really different tone to your run, but there is so much care put into honoring those threads that were put down. When we were reviewing the first issue, we noticed all of the ways that you put like nice bridges in from, what's happening in Bloodhaven, the way that you increase the stakes of what was going on, even the fact that you have Nightwing operating at night instead of during the day, which was a big thing for Tom Taylor. It all came together to make a really smooth transition that it felt like was able to tackle Nightwing in this new direction without kind of forgetting what had come before. And yeah, you did a really, really great job with that.
Oh, well, thank you. That's very nice to hear. Yeah, I think what I sort of realized fairly quickly is that um, we're just quite different writers,
Hmm.
which is part of the fun of
Oh yeah.
these runs, and these runs sort of you get to sort of take the baton and put it through your own lens. But I sort of realized fairly quickly that I would approach something like Night Might very differently to how like Tom did the stuff. So I could sort of
Differently for
return
sure.
to I could sort
Yeah.
of return to things without worrying too much that we were just there was very little chance of us rehashing.
Hmm.
That's been a lot of fun.
Awesome. So you're also doing Batman Dark Patterns right now, which is a 12-issue limited series about Batman's early years. But something very interesting about it that I think is very different than most limited series at DC is instead of this being like one story across this limited series, you're playing in these 4 3-issue arcs. And 3-issue arcs are, I think, a little bit of an odder number compared to a lot of the like 4, 5, 6 that you typically see at the big two. How do you approach writing something like that has a tighter?
I mean, I love writing shorter stories in general, and I think more traditionally they were they're a common thing
Hmm.
in
Yeah,
comic books. We've sort of moved towards the more cinematic. We're a bit past the era of the sort of widescreen comic, but I think a lot of the tools from there have sort of stuck around. Um, these sort of stories that are decompressed over 5 or 6 issues. And I quite like to sort of get in and get out, and sort of it lets you tell the story. It's very clean and it stops you
Hmm.
sort of waffling and sort of losing track of where you're going. So I really enjoy it. 3 issue also, if you talk about story structure, 3 issues are really nice length
yeah,
because you've got beginning, a middle, and an end.
right.
Um, and I also just knew I wanted to get into had a few different ideas for different
Hmm.
sort of crimes that I wanted Batman to tackle. So it all I don't it was never really discussed in any different way. We knew we had 12 issues to play with. Um, so it it made sense. Also, the original plan was to have 4 artists on the book.
Oh.
Oh,
Um,
really?
yeah, because we figured so the editor Ariana Tutura and I put this book together. Uh, actually, after the day that the Reeves Batman film came out,
Oh.
she texted me and she was like, "Have you seen it yet?" And I was like, "No, I'm in England. It's like it's 11 in the morning." And she was like, "Just text me when you've seen it. Just let me know when you've seen it." And I had booked to see it that same day, so I texted straight back and I was like, "Yeah, that's what I want out of a Batman story." And she was like,
Love
"Yeah, I
that.
know. I've already spoken to the senior editors, and like there just isn't a straight up detective Batman book right now. There's a sort of gap here." Um, so we pitched that. We got it approved fairly quickly, but then it took a while. We had a lot of back and forth about who we wanted to draw it because the thing is that it's also not necessarily really easy to lock someone in for a long run. So we
Yeah.
were like, well, we don't
Right.
know who's not already locked into a book. So we figured if we approached 4 very good artists, there was a chance that they might have a 3-month gap sometime in the next year to draw 3 issues. But luckily for us, the first person that we approached was Hayden, and it was Hayden who just immediately said, "Yeah, I'll draw it, but I want to draw all of it." And we were like, "No, no arguments from us."
Yeah, I mean, Hayden Sherman has such a distinct style to the way that they lay out books. As a writer, do you
Yeah.
find yourself adjusting the way that you're scripting or any sort of that back and forth process, or does that all happen on their end?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I think what I've learned to do is give them the space to do that. So I try not to pack pages full of very specific shots and things. I mean,
Mhm.
I definitely do. I mean, as we speak, issue 9 is the next one that comes out, and that was an interesting one because it's a little bit more of a, I guess, say, sort of a bit of a sort of locked room mystery in one
Ooh,
issue. That's a sort of, that's a a not daunting, but a sort of a risk to do in a comic
right.
book because you're not utilizing all the tools of having the big
Mhm.
cityscapes and the sort of the scale. It's mostly set in one room, but that's something that I'm very, very it would generally be a kind of risky thing, but give it to Hayden, you're still going to get something that's just visually doing all kinds of things and just all these inventive layouts that always like add to that's like I love an inventive layout that adds that
Mhm.
rather than sort of is just there.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
And Hayden's really good at that. It's storytelling. Like the inventive layouts are great and lovely, but the fact that they're all done with purpose and that they're all story driven to me as a writer or an artist, it's really important. And, uh, and I think Hayden's kind of second to none of that.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we're big fans. We're big fans here.
Cade's now trying to stay focused on you and not just go off on a
Yes.
Hayden Sherman.
Well,
Look,
yeah,
I fell in love with their art on Chicken Devil, and I've read like everything they've put since.
Uh,
well, that's the thing is like I remember them doing a wasted space and being like,
Mhm.
oh, this is really something. It's so different to how they draw now. But
Right?
yeah, we were just talking about
but
that the other day, actually. The like progression of Hayden Sherman's style because it is very different now than it was.
yeah, but I think it's more with Hayden. It's more choice than anything
Oh,
else because again,
Mhm.
like when we were originally going to do 4 arcs in 4 different style, 4 different artists. Hayden originally offered was like, I'll draw these all in totally different styles if you like.
that's
But
so
then
cool.
as soon as we hit on the sort of style for the first arc, we were like, no, that's it. Like this
It,
is
it,
this
it's
is the look of the
so
book. This
perfect
is the
for a
tone of the
Batman
book.
detective,
Yeah,
style book.
it just clicked into place. So yeah.
That's
Uh,
phenomenal. But we also love the Six Fingers in the One Hand. Here we raved about it all last year. We were so hyped about it.
Oh, thank
And
you.
that's a really talk about like inventive formats in comics. That's so wild having the two sides of the same story being told by two different creative teams in two different books being released concurrently is
yeah.
it's completely unique. How did that idea come about? How did you guys coordinate all of that?
But annoyingly, it was Ram's idea. Um, so yeah, Ram V sort of it was one of those sort of 4 a.m. messages where he's
We're all
just
the
like,
Oh
best
"Dan,
yeah.
I've got an
friends.
idea. I've just had this idea." And it came from I'd sent him a podcast on like post-humanism, and he'd been reading Cormac McCarthy, and these things sort of clicked together in his head. And he was like, "Oh, I have this, you know, cat and mouse idea, and it needs to be 2 writers and 2 art teams to make it work. But I have an idea for this cop story, but I don't have a killer's story." And the Six Fingers idea was something that I'd actually had back pocketed because it just needed something a little bit more to sort of
Mhm.
put under the hood and really get the engine rolling. So that was sort of it came about easily, but then it took us about 2 years to start making the thing properly because we talk about it every time we saw each other, which was fairly often. We're both living in London at the time, so we'd hang out all the time, and we'd sort of back and forth on these ideas. We came up with the title and all this kind of stuff, and then eventually we said, "All right, we've got to actually make this thing."
Right. It seems like it would be a very, like, because the books kind of intersect and intertwine, and you have to make sure that they're on the same page. So what was the actual process like of was it like an issue by issue thing? Were you guys sending scripts back and forth? Were you just kind of talking about the story and making sure that you kind of each did your own thing? How did you make sure that everything was kind of working together?
It was a bit of all of it. It was very organic because we would definitely send each other the script. So we just to be honest, we just shared a Dropbox throughout the whole process. So whenever there was a script update, it would go straight to the whole team. But there was that happening, and then there was also the fact that we would just talk about it whenever we saw each other, and it was quite often. So we'd and it was fun. It was fun to talk about and to sort of to chat about, and sort of I'd go like, "Oh, I'm planning this like car crash scene kind of thing," and he's like, "Oh, wait, I can use that like in my next issue," and just a lot of that kind of thing. Just uh, building the world out together.
Yeah, that comics are such a collaborative medium, and normally that's going to be between your writer and your artist. It's so fun to have it between writer and writer, because I think collaboration makes everything better. Except for
Well,
those
yeah, I mean,
writer artists,
definitely,
they're crazy.
definitely more than fighting about it. It does.
But the series is up for an Eisner this year for Best Graphic Album reprint since it came out last year. As of recording, the awards haven't happened yet, but what would it mean to you to win, the comic book Oscar?
I mean, yeah, it'd be really lovely. I've never been nominated for anything before, Eisner's or really otherwise. So it's definitely a very nice place to start.
Well, hopefully, because I think this will end up going up after the Eisner, so hopefully we can put on a little tag that you've won it at that point.
Yes, yes. Hopefully we'll be
fingers
introing with
crossed.
Eisner Award-winning writer Dan Waters.
Yeah, get that title bait in there.
That sounds very nice to me.
And I think it's also great that it's for, Best Graphic Album, because it feels like it brings the entire team together on a book that's really built on that collaboration, that team
I
building.
remember when we were doing our top tens for the year, which, by the way, you were, I think, number 1 writer on Katie's list, and I think number 3 on my list.
Oh,
so.
That was very kind. Thanks,
high
guys.
up there.
So I have won something.
There you go.
Yeah, there you go. On our little podcast. But I remember when we were doing series, Katie put the 2 books together, which was probably the correct way to do it. On her list of top series, I made them separate. The 16 did rank higher, so there you go. But yeah, I do think it's right that they are treated as one thing.
Yeah, because there was also definitely conversation about originally Image. I think totally fairly they were like, okay, well, we'll print these two books, the one hand and the six fingers, because we'd done them as separate series with the sort of thinking that it it was something to have on the shelf, like on the comic store shelf, where you could kind of participate in an element of the mystery, in that in that we didn't overtly state that they were the same story, that they were the same book.
Mm-hmm.
You'd buy the one hand and buy the six fingers. I mean, yes, the covers were all by Sumit and Lawrence, who were the 2 artists on the books, and everything was designed. It had all the same cover design sort of stuff. So I think it wasn't
beautiful
too
covers.
tricky to figure out. But that was the idea. The idea was that on the comics, and we definitely did, and it was sort of a bit of a delight, like to have people sort of go, "Oh, I'm really enjoying one book or the other online, and people go like, "Have you picked up the other one?" And they're like, "Wait, what? Like, there's two." So then, letting people have that kind of interaction, which I think can get a bit lost in the sort of digital age. But
Absolutely.
so when it came time to do the trades, we had a bit of a chat about it, just because we were like, well, that's fine. A trade is a different sort of experience and a different thing, and we knew that the correct way to read these books was in the order that the issues had come out, that they'd been
Right.
published. So issue 1 of the One Hand, then issue 1 of the Six Fingers, then issue 2 of the One Hand, and issue 2 of the Six Fingers. So yeah, we decided, rather than print the two books separately and then do a collected one, we were just going to go straight to the correct reading experience. Because also you don't want to be like read, two trades and like reading issue 1 and then putting that one down,
Right.
picking up the other one. You got to carry two books
Yeah.
around with you. It's a whole palaver. So like,
Yeah, that's definitely a lot
yeah,
different than
I'm
picking up two single issues.
yeah. Yeah, and I think once you sort of see the book as a whole, it's like, oh yeah, there was no other correct way to do it.
Yeah, I
Definitely.
think you talk about it being like a really inviting way to engage people with the book. Did you find that there were people who were kind of right in their speculations? I don't think we did much speculating, but when you have, this mystery of a killer, but you have the perspective of the killer, the mystery isn't, who's doing it, but the mystery is why it's happening. Did you find that there was a lot of good engagement? Did you find anyone who was sleuthing it out?
Yeah, and I think there's a funny thing, because I think there's been like some shows, like I think like maybe like Lost and stuff, where they like pivoted because people were figuring it out. And
Right.
I don't really understand that, because what that
Right?
means is that you've laid down the clues, and like if people pay enough attention, they can they can they can figure out your mystery, and that's how mystery is meant to work. Because
Right.
otherwise, you're kind of cheating.
Yeah, you don't really want to build towards something and then just decide, oh, too many people know what it is now, so we're going
Yeah,
to do this thing that we didn't build towards.
it's funny, because I remember like when I was a kid and I'd watch TV with my dad, and he'd sort of say the thing before someone said it on TV, and
Yeah.
sort of roll his eyes because it was tropey or whatever. But the more I've done this job, the more I've realised is no. What's happened there is a moment has been built towards and earned. And so
Hmm.
yes, you can maybe get there like a split second before the character does, but really what's happened there is that the writer has let you know how this character is feeling, and put them in a position where you feel in their shoes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
That's phenomenal. I love that. But you've worked on plenty of established characters for DC. You've written for IPs like Cyberpunk 2077, Doctor Who, and Cowboy Bebop, and you've published work of your own, like Homesick Pilots and others. Does your approach to creator-owned work differ from licensed work and like established characters? And how do you prepare for taking on a project with a long history or a specific set of expectations?
Um, I mean, it is different. It's definitely different, doing creator owned, because you've got to build your world from the ground up and set your own rules and things. It's definitely something I find easier than I used to.
Hmm.
Um, uh, I think, in terms of like preparing to take on something that's licensed or whatever, I've done some that I've known back to front. Like I know my Batman. Like
Hmm.
I don't. Yeah, I'm very very sort of comfortable in that world.
That's very apparent in
Um,
reading it.
thank you. Yeah, as long as it stays, in a way where it's that I'm sort of reveling in the world, rather than sort of just um doing callbacks, for the sake of callbacks, and
Hmm.
sort of character reveals where it's like, oh, it's this guy, and if you don't know the book as well, you don't know the history as well as I do, then you go, who? And it doesn't mean anything to you. And then you also feel a bit left out. Like I've definitely had that experience too.
Hmm.
So I
Yeah.
try to be quite careful with that. Um, but I've also done books where I haven't known the world at all. Like I did Destro for the Alan John universe, which was
Right.
a GI Joe book,
Yeah.
and like I'm from England, we didn't have GI Joe. It's too American, a property, and I was a little younger than I think the sort of core uh, childhood GI Joe cartoon demographic. Um,
Right.
so I didn't know that world at all. But I and then it became a thing of seeing, okay, well, what makes this character tick, and like, oh, okay, so it's a war story. So what do I like about war stories? What would I find interesting there? And honestly, I think that can quite often be very helpful. It can be cool to sort of
Yeah.
come at something that other people know back to front and can take for granted. The like weirdness or the sort of because if you've been seeing Destro from the age of 2, you might not question why he has a metal head, but it's really
Yeah.
weird that he has a metal head.
Yeah.
So I saw him for the first time in my 30s. I was like, well, I want to know why he has a metal head, and I'm definitely explaining it in the story as well. Um, so yeah, just things like that. I think both can be very good as long as you sort of uh, keep your focus on the story and treating your character as sort of serious, not seriously, but like as treat them like flesh and blood.
Yeah. Or,
Absolutely.
metal.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Flushing metal. Um, but speaking of properties known back to front, I'm a huge Ninja Turtles fan, so I have to ask you a little bit about this upcoming Shredder book. I think a lot of Turtles fans have been very interested in what's going to be going on with this book because we haven't seen Shredder in a while in the IDW universe. Last we saw him was in Armageddon Game, which was after he was obviously dead, and then he was resurrected. But following his resurrection, he had mostly been fairly heroic. He'd been helping the Turtles for his last couple appearances. Are you going to kind of be continuing that heroic train? Are you taking him back to the more like classic Shredder? Can you share what direction you're taking Shredder in?
Yeah, I don't want to get sort of torn to bits for it, but uh, I think when you announce a Shredder issue 1, he has to feel like Shredder.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? It's.
Hell yeah.
I think what Jason Aaron and all those fantastic artists did with the sort of relaunch of Turtles, uh, they did it really well and sort of managed to marry everything that had come before, rebooted nothing, but treated as a fresh start and a sort of
absolutely.
back to basics
Yeah,
idea. And so I think that we took that as a kind of North Star in terms of how we treat Shredder's character. And I also just think it's a funny thing that happens in sort of serialized storytelling, particularly sort of fantasy and sort of superhero-ish kind of stuff, where like characters really end up getting a pass that they
Yep.
shouldn't
yeah,
get.
yeah. That's certainly fair.
I just always remember watching Dragon Ball as a kid and being like, and Vegeta sort of becoming this sort of family man and stuff. And it's like, oh, isn't it nice that he's like had this growth? It's like he committed genocide.
He doesn't deserve the growth. Like everyone gets
Yeah.
Zuko'd now, and they never do it
Yeah.
as thoughtfully as Zuko was done.
I feel like me and Kate are always talking about this with Harley Quinn, where we're like, there's some real screwed up stuff there.
Yeah, it's gonna be like some, people like watching her in the Justice League, like from on TV in Gotham, be like, that's the woman that killed my whole family.
Yeah.
Um, but I don't know if she was ever quite that bad. But yeah, so I think without treat, I understand. I also do understand why that happens. People fall in love with these characters, and it's not real either.
Absolutely.
But uh, yeah, I just wanted to make sure that Shredder felt like Shredder, and
Yeah.
that some of his past is definitely going to come back and sort of bite him in the butt. And not necessarily stuff that we've seen from the books before, but I just got really interested in how exactly would the Foot Hound clan have functioned and made their money and stuff, and what fingers in pies did he have all over the world. So now that he's got none of these resources and he's sort of coming back with a fresh start, he's going to sort of leverage and utilize the things that he knows about the world, which is also kind of an excuse to sort of explore all the corners of the Turtles world. So like sort of the mad science and the magic and sort of we quite, it's going to be quite, at least first art, it's going to be quite sort of globe-trotting and exploring like who he is and how he came to be.
Yeah, I'm glad to hear we'll be getting to explore the world, because we've been very bummed with the announcement that Mutant Nation is
Mutant
ending.
Nation's ending.
Yeah, which has given us kind of that zoomed out perspective with, like you said, the Turtles being back to basics in New York or New Jersey. Disgusting.
That's where I live.
Always gotta roast Jay's home state. But so it'll be nice to have another TMNT book that's really looking outward. As someone who really wasn't into TMNT before, it's been a really great experience getting to experience all of these worlds and characters. So I'm looking forward.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's the Casey Jones book coming out and stuff, so there's plenty more Turtle stuff in the works.
But let me ask you one more super nerdy, Shredder continuity question, because I've got to do it, and then I'll stop hitting you on all the past stuff. But last we had seen Shredder, he was in Dimension Z for a new start. Is that like anything where you're actually going to touch on how and why he's come back to New York?
Yeah, and so why he's come back sort of grumpy as well.
Okay.
To put it very mildly. Yes, yeah. That's awesome. All very much part of the story, and that's a sort of mystery we'll be unraveling over the first arc. Right, so yeah. We're definitely trying to make sure we like with Nightwing, it's like this version of the character's been around for over a decade at this point. So well, maybe way longer.
I think it was 2011 when IDW continuity started.
So decade and a half. So we're definitely not trying to throw any of that character development out, but that's not to say he might not backslide a bit.
Yeah, it's very much in Shredder's nature to do so, I think.
At the end of the day, he's a century-old ninja who's spent, he's basically kept himself alive for centuries out of spite. So old habits die hard.
Yeah, he's made of flesh and blood, I think.
Yeah,
is he?
And ooze.
Yes,
and ooze. Healthy dose of ooze keeps you young.
Work for him.
Well, Dan, thank you so much for coming on the show. We absolutely love all of the writing you've been doing. We're so looking forward to all of the series that are upcoming. And where can people find you? You will be at San Diego Comic-Con, but I think that's coming out after that. So yes. People just missed you.
Yeah. A few cons coming up for the rest of the year, at least a couple. But I can't remember off the top of my head. Just sort of go where I'm told. But follow me on Blue Sky or Instagram. Oh yeah, thank you very much. So yeah, so that's where you can sort of find me. The Dead Air channel is my newsletter that I've let fall a little bit by the wayside, but I'm gearing up to bring back. Yeah, I sort of there was some sort of I sort of screwed myself there, didn't I? But yeah, I'll be bringing that back very soon as well, and that's I really enjoy writing that. So you can get there from my Blue Sky and Instagram, whatever, as well.
Awesome. And I think we've mentioned most of your books at this point across the interview, but is there any other upcoming books that you want to let people know that they should be picking up or anything like that?
I'm doing a Magic the Gathering book for Dark Horse.
I had seen
That's
that. Yeah, I'm very excited for that. Also, Magic the Gathering guy.
which yeah, so that's been a lot of fun. And I think that's solicited already. And we've just announced we're doing a second Doctor Who book with Titan for the 15th Doctor, um, which is the Doctor breaking out of an intergalactic prison, which is circling a black hole of despair. So it's kind of
Astounding.
very much my take on Doctor Who.
That's awesome.
Amazing. Well, be sure to check all that out. Also, Nightwing, also Batman Dark Patterns, and keep an eye out for Shredder coming up. But Dan, thanks so much for coming out. This is such a delight.
Thanks very much for having
Thank
me.
you.
It's been a real pleasure.
Thank you so much, Dan, for answering all of our questions, and hopefully you don't hate me too much for those Shredder ones. But hopefully you all at home enjoyed that interview as much as we did. But now it is time for the details on the Nightwing Volume 1 giveaway. So it's pretty simple. If you want to enter the giveaway, all you have to do is be subscribed to the Script Heroes YouTube channel. So click that subscribe button right now. And you have to leave a comment on this video. That's it. That's the whole deal. But you can gain additional entries by commenting on other videos in which we reviewed Dan Waters' books. So that's The Six Fingers, Batman Dark Patterns, Nightwing, etc. So you can get a bunch more entries across the channel. I'm going to link a bunch of those videos down below so you can go over and leave comments for additional entries. Also in the description down below will be just the full rules and such on the giveaway, in case you wanted to write.
Yeah. But thank you so much for checking out this video. Thank you again to Dan for coming onto the channel.
Yeah.
And as always, we'll see you next week.
Comic Geeks!